Are literary agents really necessary? We'll talk about that on the other side of the intro. I'm John Gilstrap, author of the Jonathan Grave Thriller series, and in this episode of A Writer's View, we're going to talk about whether or not a literary agent is necessary in a writer's life, in your life, and essentially what do literary agents do. I've talked about this in bits and pieces in some other videos, but never quite on the nose like it is here. So, do you need a literary agent? Well, the answer, since this is the publishing industry, the answer is, of course, it depends. If your focus is short stories, if you're a short story author, then no, you don't need a literary agent. You probably couldn't get a literary agent. If you self-publish, of course not, because there's no need to have a literary agent when you're in fact publishing on your own. But if your interest is in traditional trade publishing, then the answer is yes, you need to have an agent. Now, you don't necessarily need an agent to get interest in your book. There are some publishing houses and some genres where unagented manuscripts are still accepted. Romance comes to mind as a genre where I understand there are a lot of unagented manuscripts that are taken on. But once the publisher makes you an offer, that's when you need to get yourself an agent. And if not an agent, then certainly an attorney who understands the literary business and the publishing business. Let's talk about, for a second, what a literary agent does. Now, we all know, excuse me, that they negotiate the sale of the manuscript. But not only do they do the deal, they do the deal points. Now, deal points include not just print rights, which is what we normally think about when we talk about selling a book, but what about foreign print rights? What about film and TV rights? What about audio rights? What about the delivery dates of the manuscript? Does it conflict? I mean, nobody wants to deliver a manuscript on Christmas Day, right? So these are all points that are negotiated by the agent, sort of, with the author's blessing, but without the author's direct involvement. The idea of, in my estimation, the idea of the perfect author-editor relationship is strictly a creative one. I never have dealt with a business matter with my editor, and I never hope to deal with a business matter with my editor, simply because, it doesn't poison the well. I like to keep things pure when we talk about things. There's also the structure of the deal that you negotiate. For example, in a multi-book deal, is it joint accounting or is it individual accounting on the books? Now, what that means is if you sold a two-book deal, joint accounting means that, let's say you've got a two-book $10,000 deal, which would be $5,000 a book. I've done a video on how authors get paid. But in essence, each book, you get an advance of $5,000, and then that royalty, or that advance has to be earned out by royalties. In joint accounting, if the first book doesn't do well, the first dollars on the second book, the royalties on the second book, won't apply directly to the second book. They have to apply to the first book first. So that's joint accounting, and frankly, it's, in my estimation, it's not acceptable for me. I know it's acceptable for other authors, but, to each their own. Individual accounting means book one does what it does and book two does what it does. So even if book one never earns out, the author will, but when number two does, the author will still get paid on what happens with number two. Reversion of rights clauses are really, really important, more so now than they've ever been before. Now, what a reversion of rights means is that normally it's a 7-year period. I guess it's a negotiated period, but I think it's always after the publisher has the book for 7 years. If it's gone out of print, then the rights for the book revert back to the author. Now, early on, this was easy. A book was a paper thing, and it was on a shelf, and it was either there or it wasn't. So if it wasn't there, it was out of print, and the rights would come back easily. Now, with the advent of print on demand, or POD, as it's called, and ebooks, when is a book ever out of print? So even if it's not doing very well, it's entirely possible that the rights will never revert back to the author, even if it's selling, 5 or 6 copies a year. That's just silly. So a good literary agent will negotiate a very specific time, and hopefully it's to the benefit of the author, that a book will be considered out of print when it sells no more than X, not when it's literally out of print on the e-book shelf. So these are the kinds of things that literary agents will take care of. Excuse me. Experienced agents, and who would want to get an inexperienced one, right? An experienced agent knows what publishing houses are looking for, what kinds of materials. They've established relationships with agents or with editors over time, and they know what the editors are looking for. And when they see a manuscript by an author, they know, wow, this really looks like something Tom Johnson would like over at XYZ House, and we'll send it over there. And when it arrives, Tom Johnson at XYZ House will put it at the top of his incoming pile and give it an honest read. You can't get that kind of read over the transom. You just can't. And they also know what's happening in the industry and things that need to be worried about. As I record this video in December of 2019, there is one major house in New York, one of the big five, that has a terrible reversion of rights clause. And they won't come off of it. They just essentially, they buy books and the books never come back to the author. I would never do business with them again. I've done business with them in the past, and that's how I learned. There's another major house right now that is being boycotted by most, if not all, libraries in the United States because of their terrible policies regarding sales to libraries. So these are the kinds of things that the insiders know and know to avoid those houses at this particular time. So not only do they know where to go, they know where not to go. They know what different houses are willing to pay. That's, at the end of the day, as a professional writer, that's a big deal, right? So some publishers, you can get big advances, but oddly no support for the book. Other publishers, you get relatively modest advances, but then a lot of support for the book so that it ends up selling well. These are things that the literary agent is going to know. Who does what better than the other? And given the author's personality and given the nature of the story and given the relationships with the agent is able to sort of vector the author's story to the right place. My agent fights battles for me. You know, if I get crosswise with my editor or the publisher, and it happens sometimes, I love my publisher, but sometimes, you know, just things don't go out the way they're supposed to, I don't have to fight that battle. That's what Ann, my agent, does for me on my behalf. So everything is just always hunky-dory between me and my editor, even when there's kind of a battle raging in the background. So that's what they do. I know a lot of people are hesitant, you know, why does the agent take your money? Well, you know, they really don't. They get paid on a commission. Hard stop. If you're looking for an agent and that agent proposes a reading fee, run like a bunny rabbit. That is not a reputable agent. Agents make their money strictly through commissions based on the author's sale. So my agent doesn't make a dime unless I make quite a few dimes. Right? Now, the actual percentage of the commission is a point of negotiation. I think the industry standard is somewhere around 15% for domestic sales, 20% for foreign. I don't know, quite honestly. But it's certainly no more than 20%, I don't think. But at the end of the day, you know, the foreign sales are going to be 20% or more simply because it requires the involvement of co-agents in the foreign market where the book is being sold. So at the end of this episode, I'm going to put a link, it's probably going to be down here, to another episode I did on how to choose a literary agent. Of the pantheon of agents that are out there, how do you choose the one that is best for you? So you can click on that link and you can go and watch that as well. I'll also put a link in the comments section to a video I did on how authors get paid. So there's tons more stuff. If you want to find it on my website, johngilstrap.com, please like me on Facebook, John Gilstrap Author. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. There's going to be a little round link right up over my shoulder. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you don't do any of those things, please take care. Please keep reading. I'm John Gilstrap.